What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to What's Your Story? So today I have a guest on, my buddy Zack. He is someone I met back in, I think, 2016. We both started at Equinox, both went on that onboarding process, and both became personal trainers through them. Someone I wanted to bring on because someone I think had a lot in common with me when it came to about training, weightlifting, like lifting heavy-ass weights, just having a good time, but also trying to like help coach people and just help improve quality of life with a lot of clients that we had. So, I think we connected pretty well over our time there, and it's been cool to watch Zack grow into the trainer he is over the last, 4+ years of coaching at Equinox. He's someone I definitely would, believe that can give a lot of value to the podcast today, and someone that I think you'll find very interesting from him working with his clients to his journey of how he got into training. He's maybe a little bit different route than the average trainer, but has built a very successful training business at Equinox over the last 4 years. So at this point, Zack, I want to welcome you to the show, man.
Hey, how's it going, Jeff? I'm very thankful for you having me on the podcast today, and happy to sort of be here to be able to share some of my story as to sort of how I got into fitness and, starting with our, sort of how you and I met at Equinox and sort of, what sort of preceded that and sort of led to me taking a position at Equinox, as well as how Equinox has sort of allowed me to grow as an individual, and how I feel like, I can sort of use that in my career in fitness to sort of propel me to propel me in my career to get to the point that I want to be at long term, in my life.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, dude. I can't believe it's already been like 4 years because, it's like I remember like the first process, like going through all the blue shirts and we're on the floor all the time, and just like me moving out to Boston and you being out there. It's crazy how fast time goes. But I kind of want to start at the beginning of all this, and a lot of this is like kind of how your journey started, how you got into fitness and training and all that. So for you, like, when did it start? Were you like an athlete as a young kid, or is it like later in your teens you start working out or get into it? Or how was that for you?
Yeah, totally. I was an athlete as a kid, multi-sport athlete. I dabbled in football for a tiny little bit, but predominantly baseball and basketball. I was a big baseball kid growing up. That sort of, allowed me to channel my competitiveness and sort of, when I graduated high school and started college, basically what it came down to was that I was trying to fund my way through school independently without any resources from my parents. And that resulted in me actually choosing to enlist in the military at 19 years old. So I ended up enlisting in the military, going to boot camp. And following boot camp, you attend a secondary school offering that you sort of develop a skill to get qualified for your job in the military. And traditionally, that's anywhere from sort of 4 months to 9 months. And mine was on the shorter end, say 4 months. And this is sort of post boot camp. So after having gone through the boot camp process, and in my secondary schooling, I became friends with this kid who was a personal trainer as a civilian. And he had a big impact on me. And he was a power lifter, actually. And that's sort of what transpired my interest in fitness, a little bit beyond just working out for sports or playing sports and competing at that level. So, yeah, what ended up happening essentially is I spent 4 months with this kid. We had a fair amount of free time after school each day. School ended around 4 o'clock, and we would normally in the evening go hit the gym for a couple hours, and then we would basically, shove our faces at the buffet style cafeteria, which you can imagine how that sort of translated into making some pretty consistent progress with the ability to have sort of unlimited food at your disposal, 3 times a day. So yeah, it's basically like kind of like a college style setup, in the sense of when kids go to school and they have access to the dining halls, and we had an exceptional amount of free time, and that relationship with his name was Jay. And that kid really played a pivotal role in sort of transforming my interest in fitness. And then additionally, in my free time that I had while I was there, I did a lot of research on nutritional intake and how that played a role in multitude of things, overall health for longevity, as well as performance, as well as body composition. And I think that looking at food was always something that I really enjoyed. But I think that having a better understanding of how food could dictate my my progression in the gym, as well as my body composition changes and my long-term health all in one, I think it really sort of propelled or sort of springboarded my interest in fitness. And then I think that when I came home from that sort of 4-month experience is really sort of when I decided to delve deeper into fitness from there. And that sort of gives a general rundown of, sort of my introduction to weightlifting in a more serious manner. I had a little bit of coaching from the individual that I became friends with, Jay, and then sort of doing some background research on food and how that sort of would play a role in sort of helping me progress further.
Gotcha. So when it came to the military side of training, so you said it was like a 4-month type thing at the beginning and your initial boot camp. For people that never got into the military or never went through boot camp, there's a lot of hype. No matter kind of what you go into, is like boot camp is brutal. It beats you down. It's hard. What was your experience with like boot camp or like kind of that whole process in general?
Yeah, sure. I think that the two things that get undermined about boot camp is that I think that mentally you're really on an island for that sort of 2.5 to 3 month process, because a lot of the drill sergeants really are demanding you to be quiet and not sort of they want to be in charge and they want to hear themselves talk, and they certainly don't want to hear you talk or talk back to them. So I think for a long period, for 2.5 to 3 months, you're basically, sort of in your own head, operating on a day-to-day basis. And I think that that's sort of a component that is, sort of not a lot of people are aware of. And it allows you to sort of reflect on sort of the state that you're at in your life and kind of the things that you do want moving forward, as well as sort of appreciate the things in your sort of pre-existing life, pre-military, that you're looking forward to going back to. I think the second thing that is also under-addressed is actually how little sleep that you get on a night-to-night basis. I would say that on average in boot camp, you're basically getting around 6 hours of sleep, but it's broken up by an hour in between. So an example is you're getting 3 hours of sleep with an hour break where you're working in the middle of the night, and then you have another 3 hours after that. So when they talk about sort of cognitive regeneration through sleep, as well as sort of physical regeneration through getting REM sleep, you're really never able to fully recover from the previous day due to the fact that you sort of never get a full bout of sleep straight through. And that really starts to compound on you over 2.5 to 3 months.
Sure. So your recovery is obviously trash. You're like, your mind starts to go all over the place. And it seems like at that point, it's literally the whole process. And, at least from the outside looking in, it's just a mental game. Like it comes down to, they're just trying to break people and who can mentally be the strongest, sleep not well, get pushed physically. Is that kind of what it was for you?
Yeah, big time. And I think that, you do an exceptional amount of, I don't necessarily think that the physical side of it is all that it's sort of hyped up to be. I think that, I probably went in with a pretty decent level of baseline physical fitness due to sort of my athletic background. But I mean, do you do a lot of push-ups per day? Do you do a lot of sit-ups per day? And do you run a couple times a week? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're probably running, I'd probably say a total of 12 to 15 miles a week, which isn't really outlandish when you think about it and break it down to kind of a 6-day training. You're maybe running 2 to 3 miles a day on top of maybe 150 to 200 push-ups total per day. It's not really, I don't necessarily think the physical part of it is really demanding. I think that you do an exceptional amount of walking. I mean, you're probably doing a total of, you walk everywhere you go, really. You don't step foot in a vehicle or a car the entire time you're there, and you're walking to all the training sites. So you're probably doing somewhere close to 30,000 steps a day, on top of your workouts in the morning, which are sort of 45 minutes to an hour. And it's like you just are ravenous nonstop.
Right.
So it's kind of like the during the eating times, you really only have about 10 minutes on the stopwatch to finish each meal. So I think that you really I think you get really good at eating food and a lot of it really fast.
Right.
And then I think that I think the physical part of it is okay. But I certainly don't think that it's not what you see in a movie by any means.
Right. So it's a lot of hype behind at least the initial boot camp, but it's
Definitely.
more of just, it's more of teaching discipline, it's like getting that routine and getting all that together. So you had your buddy Jay, he influenced you a bunch, and you got through kind of this point where you had started to educate yourself more nutrition wise. You started to learn a bit more and kind of implement it. What was the next step kind of when it led to like, I enjoy working out. I want to learn more about it too. I want to be a coach, and I wanted to start like working with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And so basically what it comes down to is, like I mentioned previously, is that I was trying to fund my way through school.
Yeah.
And I wanted to set myself up for sort of the best sort of financial position that I could be in post grad. And what I mean by that was that I was working full time while I was commuting to school. And I was also receiving some benefits from the military in addition to just the free tuition as well. So we would get like a monthly GI Bill, and then I would also get some financial aid funded toward me as well. So my goal in college was, instead of graduating sort of, strapped with student loans, up to the brim, I wanted to be in the complete reverse, or sort of opposite of that. I wanted to graduate school, having used the military to fund my degree, receiving some financial aid to sort of propel a savings account for post grad, and as well as sort of working full time and maximizing my free time in college to accumulate money and be self-sufficient through college, to sort of bolster that savings account as well, so that I had the ability to not stress myself in sort of the early stages of my career, and so that I had a little bit of leniency once I was off on my own, getting my own place, and sort of starting my first job. And where sort of all this sort of emphasis and planning and organization on the financial stuff comes from is that actually my background is actually in business. I actually got my degree in business with sort of a concentration in finance. And then what ended up happening was, as I mentioned, when I came back from boot camp and sort of my schooling, I sought out getting a certification in training, so that I could make more money with that skill set than I was, working, a minimum wage job on the side while I was in school. So it really, what it came down to is that I was like, well, this is something that I'm interested in. This is something that I devoted a lot of time to in the last few months and getting smarter at. And I want to sort of use this as a way to, use a skill of mine to earn a little bit more money while I'm in school. And I'm doing something that I enjoy. So that sort of prompted my desire to go out and get certified to be a trainer, and take that sort of next step.
Yeah, the thing I like about that story and that build up, man, is there's something that you've created at a young age. There's a lot of discipline, like you said, planning the entire like process of like the military to going to school to like thinking about money and that whole process is something that I think most people at that young age don't do. And it's something that like, you know, they come out, go to a 4-year college, take 50,000 a year in debt. Next thing you're 150,000, 200,000 a year in debt, and you don't even get a degree you want. Before we kind of go more into the fitness side, like for you, was that kind of instilled at you as a young age, or is that something you just kind of picked up as you got a little older on your own?
Yeah. So just to give you a little bit of a background, so growing up, always from a young age, you know, when I was young, my parents were not very affluent whatsoever. Um, my mom was a stay-at-home mom growing up. My dad worked a job, and my dad was bringing home, you know, $550 a week at a young age. My dad, you know, eventually propelled himself in his career and sort of, you know, moved up the rung in the ladder to get to a point where he was earning, you know, a substantial amount more. But from a young age, my parents always sort of said to me, you know, and sort of stressed the importance of academia and how it was sort of on me to achieve the lifestyle that I wanted for myself on my own financially. And so what I realized was that, you know, when I was in my teen years, I sort of really realized the importance of um, progressing my own knowledge um, academically and how that would impact my ability to achieve the lifestyle goals that I had for myself moving forward. Um, and I think initially that started with, um, you know, collegiately, sort of getting into a number of colleges, making a decision on which college I wanted to go to. Um, but you know, it even started like I was working part-time jobs, you know, putting up flyers at gas stations to do yard work for people and mowing people's lawns when I was 14 years old, and riding my bike to their house to do it. So I think that, you know, from a really young age, I had a very sort of entrepreneurial mindset. Um, and I think that that sort of was something that was instilled in me because I always had this sort of outlook that I knew I was going to have to, you know, fund my own way through college, and I really viewed college as sort of a necessity to get myself to be respected as an individual professionally, and to achieve the type of um, compensation that I felt that I deserved, um, based off of the effort that I put into academics during my high school years.
So you get out with like the business degree, like you kind of had the discipline with, you know, obviously going through money, being very conscious. You get the job as a coach. Was Equinox your first training job?
Yeah, so I trained clients my junior and
Yeah.
senior.
Okay.
So I trained clients my junior and my senior year in college, and I actually bought a bunch of equipment, and I actually trained clients out of my parents' basement where I lived my junior and senior year in college. Um, and I basically would advertise stuff on Craigslist. I would go through complimentary consults with people and accumulate clients and manage my own schedule. And this sort of gave me a taste of what it would be like to sort of travel to and clients, recruit my own clients, and you know, how important client retention was, how important the product that you were offering was, how to market yourself, um, how to sort of get people to buy into your concept, and then also how to sort of, um, you know, how to sort of get your foot into the door and understand what training, you know, clients one on one would be like. So that was sort of my first job um, that, you know, I sort of had in fitness. And at that point, I was only charging, you know, $20 an hour to train these people. And basically, my whole mindset was that I I more wanted the experience.
Right.
And, if I was able to make a good amount of money on the side, um, my mindset was that if I can work less hours and make more money, um, training clients, then I have more time to do other things and think up, additional ideas or build my business further. So there was always this mindset of that, the more money that you can make per hour allows for you to work less and use your brain more to sort of continue to build upon what you already have existing.
Yeah, I love that mindset in general. Like the whole, I'm a huge Gary V guy. Like I don't know about you with Gary V, but just like the whole entrepreneur mindset to just, finding your niche and just kind of, continue to push it, continue to grow. And it's a perfect example of, like you said, you're not charging a lot, but you're forming your craft. You're just kind of creating what works for you, what doesn't work, and then like you get to the point now where like you probably feel good, you want a little bit more, and you enjoy the field. So when you took the job at Equinox, was it that for you at that time, like an opportunity to kind of take it to the next level?
Yeah. So essentially, what happened was I graduated. This is actually funny. So as I was getting ready to graduate from my sort of college days at Worcester State, I actually applied for a number of finance-oriented jobs, and I applied for a bunch of fitness-oriented jobs working as a trainer. Um, and I had gone through a number of interviews in both fields, and I was offered the job at Equinox as a trainer, um, as well as a number of positions in finance. And what I said to myself is, you know, 10 years from now, if I accept one of these jobs in finance, um, and I'm working at a desk, working under someone else who is in charge of me and is sort of dictating how many hours I work, what my pay scale is, and, sort of has me, um, sort of under their control. I felt as though that I may look back and say, I may regret looking back and saying, why didn't I seek something out that I was passionate about, where I may have had the potential to earn the same amount of money that I could earn in finance. And then, so I think the way that I looked at it was when I accepted the role at Equinox is I said, look, I can take 2 to 3 years. I have money saved up that I sort of put aside while I was in school, and I can sort of have a real crack at this thing and figure out whether I can hack it and learn and sort of progress in this industry, and make a career out of this. And I'm not going to, and something that I, thoroughly enjoy. And if I can make the same amount of money working in fitness that I could in finance, then that's fantastic because I have the ability to sort of make my own hours and sort of make my own schedule and have a little bit more leniency. And you have a boss, but it's not as as long as you're performing and sort of meeting your session quota, your boss is going to be pretty happy with you to the as long as you're sort of meeting that session quota. I think that that sort of really prompted me to sort of take a chance at accepting this job at Equinox, and really giving it a chance.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I love about that too. Is it works out really well because you keep going back to the business side and the finance side, but that's kind of like 50% of the personal training business, especially at Equinox. So it's kind of like you get a bit of both worlds, like by doing Equinox and coaching and training and kind of like building your own clientele and managing all that.
Yep.
So that's like a cool happy medium for you. But I'm curious of your response on this because I think a lot of people don't necessarily go to school for what they want, or maybe they get a degree and then they kind of go into a different field and they maybe don't make a decision that they truly want to because they're worried about the judgment of others, they're worried about society, their parents, their friends, like judging them on a decision. So like for you, you went to school for business finance and then you're like going into personal training. Did you kind of like take a little bit of heat or deal with some judgment, or like people kind of like, what are you doing? Like that's not what did you deal with any of that?
Yeah, so I think that you kind of, I think that the first thing that everyone can relate to, is being at that Thanksgiving dinner with your aunts and uncles, where you just, they're sort of checking in. Hey, how's everything going? And I know that you were sort of graduating school, and kind of what do you got going on now? And you had just devoted 4 years to college, and I think that the enlisting in the military also is sort of not exactly the norm. So I
Right.
think that kind of like your family sort of trying to look at what it is that you are doing, and say, you enlisted in the military, you went and got a 4-year degree in business and in finance, and now you're working in personal training. I think you have a lot of people that look at you and think that you're being a little bit indecisive, um, but I think that they don't have a whole look into really what's going on, um, you know in your life, and sort of what you want for yourself, and that's totally okay. I mean, I think that you know you don't necessarily have to answer to everyone in your life. I think what it comes down to is um, having a definitive plan on your end, sticking to that plan, and not being afraid to jump ship if things don't work out. Right. So my whole plan was, I'm content going to Equinox, trying to be a trainer. And if this works, then this works. I'll know 2, 3 years from now whether this is going to work or whether it isn't. But at the minimum, I had a degree to fall back on. And that was sort of my, I always knew that I had the ability to get a job in my field, um, worst case scenario. And that's why I'm so thankful that I did seek out that degree. Um, and I think that there's a lot of information that I did accumulate while I was in college, on the business front, that really has allowed for me to propel my fitness career beyond, um, beyond sort of the traditional model of sort of the earning potential of most trainers in the industry, which I'm very thankful for. But sort of segue back to, what you were talking about in regard to the sort of the judgment component. Um, I think that when I showed up at Equinox, one of the things that I realized very, very quickly early on was that, um, could I could I execute some challenging workouts on my own, and could I help myself progress? Yeah, absolutely. Had I gotten pretty strong on my own? Absolutely. Um, and could I? Was I very motivated to work hard, um, to get stronger? Did my athletic background help me, and did my dietary diligence help me? All of those things absolutely help me. Um, but being a personal trainer is a lot more than just those things. And what I came to realize very early on is that, A, I didn't have an absolute clue as to what I was doing in regard to programming for clients. Um, and I also, I didn't have any of the anatomical knowledge that was required for me to be able to convey the reasoning behind my exercise selection for my clients. Um, and so I think that I was really good at convincing people to get into training, because they respected my fitness level, and um, I think that I think that I was pretty good from a business standpoint of sort of putting together a sales pitch. But I think the problem was that once I got them as clients, I really didn't have a clue as to what I was doing, and that was fairly clear on my end. I think it was relatively clear on their end, and I think that a lot of my colleagues looked at me as just kind of spinning my wheels, and that I really had to find some traction in order to sort of make it in the industry.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because like you said, is you get the opportunity to work there. You're obviously like a people person. You're good, with like conveying like the benefits of like training and coaching, all that stuff. But I think every coach or trainer goes through it, especially at the beginning, where you just like you had a style that worked for you with the clients you have, but then when you start to get this wide variety, like myself included, you start to like question of like, well, how am I going to program this person when they have this issue, and this, and then, then you get in your own head and you start overthinking things, and then, and then once you start to like put those puzzle pieces together and learn like, oh, they need to go from this exercise to this exercise to this exercise and progress and progress and progress, and then, and it's like, oh, that makes sense, but it's tough because like everyone goes through that, and it's not your fault or like anyone else's fault, but it's just like you said, it can be a little. You go in with a really like I'm gonna crush it mindset, and then kind of like hits you, and you're like, whoa, like it's like anyone switching any career. It's it's a learning process, but like to your benefit, like you stayed in it for the last 4 years and just learned and worked, and you were willing to fail to like make it work. And I want to go back to one thing you said with like sitting at the table and the family and all that stuff, and it's tough because I think too many people get caught up in those opinions and they don't take enough chances on their own, and they're worried about upsetting someone in the moment to do something, and then like you did is you just did it, and people 10 years later look back that don't, and they're like, man, I really wanted to do A, B, C, and D, and then they didn't. But like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like,
yeah,
you're back this, like even myself with stuff going on, it's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, you're always learning, and if you don't do that thing, you won't know if you like it or not.
absolutely.
You gotta do it. So I appreciate you opening up about that, and like being confident in yourself enough to be like, hey man, I didn't know what I was doing right away, but I'm gonna figure it out and I'm gonna learn, because that's the process. So it's tough because I think a lot of people can relate with that. So you've been at Equinox for like 4 years now. I want to ask you a couple questions before we end this, like that I think can be helpful to someone. The first one I ask is like, someone that got into training, maybe not with it necessarily in your field initially, kind of a little bit later on after school, or at the end of school, what would be a piece of advice you would give to a coach or someone that isn't certified, that's really just starting to get into the field and want to pursue it as a career?
Yeah, absolutely. And so where I would start from an education standpoint, sort of on my front, having looking back on sort of my journey beginning at Equinox, year one until now, 4 years, almost 5 years, actually 5 years, yeah, 5 years in May, is that, I sort of look at it, and I think that Equinox is great in the sense that they actually offer a curriculum for you to learn, which really helped me expand and sort of develop a baseline level of understanding as to what I was doing. And it allowed for me to, sort of critically think about some of the decisions that I was making, how to get better at things like programming and being able to explain things anatomically, and sort of exercise selection, progression, regression, things like that. I think that those are all helpful in regard to the curriculum that Equinox offers. And that's sort of independently just offered by Equinox, which is sort of puts them a cut above some of the other box gyms and training facilities that there are out there. But sort of in the event that you don't have the opportunity to train at somewhere like Equinox, some of the things that I've adopted, even beyond just the sort of the baseline level offering at Equinox, is seeking out some really highly accredited and accomplished individuals in the field, that are put on a pedestal and for a reason, and understanding, it's like, at the minimum, if you can take the best people in whatever it is that you're doing, and you can understand why they're successful in what they do and how they do it, you're definitely going, and you can instill it yourself, you are definitely going to become better at what it is that you do. Even look at it from an example of most, this is kind of, current and relevant due to the fact that we just, watched sort of a 10-piece documentary on Michael Jordan, The Last Dance. Michael may be considered sort of one of the best, if not the best basketball player of all time, right? But, when you look at guys like Kobe Bryant and guys like LeBron James, they'd be lying to you if they told you that they didn't model, a large majority of their game after Michael. And it's because everything is there for you to see. Everything is on film. and you can break it down and analyze it and try to understand why it is that he's so good. And that's what has allowed those two individuals to get infinitely better at the game and sort of develop the superstardom that they have. And that's sort of how I look at the training industry, is that, you're not going to, from square one, be who you want to be. It's going to take a long time and a lot of knowledge accumulated to sort of get you to that point. And, the way that I look at it is that, so primarily is, looking for people that you confide in, learning from those individuals, reading. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, opening up a 600-page textbook and getting after it. It can be a multitude of things, right? You can watch seminars from professionals like Eric Cressy or Mike Boyle or Dean Somerset or Tony Gentilcore, or some of the real sort of Ben Bruno, some people that are really sort of prominent in the industry and hold a lot of weight. I think that you can really start to get a really good understanding of how to become a better trainer and build a better base for yourself, in terms of the product that you're offering, how to convey to your clients why the model that you're offering makes sense, and really help them progress from there. So I think that the way that I would look at it is, trying to seek out attending seminars with other individuals who are interested in learning, watching content or reading content online. Doesn't necessarily need to be textbooks. It can be short articles on something like T Nation. It could be watching Instagram videos for people that you find to be knowledgeable. And those are a couple examples. Or it could be, as simple as, finding a podcast that is fitness oriented and like this, and listening to it, on your way into work and learning some material that way. So I think that that's sort of how I would look at it, and how you can potentially, really sort of build a career in fitness without having a background in exercise science, and really develop a solid following and have people really start to respect your opinion.
Yeah, all that makes so much sense, man. And it seems like the big piece of the puzzle that you're saying is to be very proactive. It's not, you can't just kind of like bullshit your way through it to be good at it. You have to put in the time, you got to put in the research. And it's like any career. Like if you want to, barely get by paycheck to paycheck, not really move up or get better in your career, then, skate here, then yeah, you want to bullshit it. But if you want to get better, like you got to be putting in the work, every day, every week to work on that knowledge. The last question I have for you is kind of more directed to you, because it seems like everything we've talked about, you've been very like disciplined. You feel like you're always trying to like learn more. You're being proactive. You're humble in that aspect. You're always trying to get better, and you're giving credit to other people of like how you learned a lot of things. Are there things that you do on like a day-to-day basis to, help educate you, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, or like some people talk about meditation and yoga, audio books, reading? Like, what are things that you do on a day-to-day basis to try to help yourself?
Yeah, so I think that a couple things that I've sort of gotten a better understanding for over the years is this is something I constantly view myself as continuously learning on a day-to-day basis, and that's learning through your own movement, right? I go through workouts, and there's things that I pick up or that I think about, and that I adopt myself, that I constantly change my mind on things. It could be sort of how I program for myself, or how to program rep schemes or certain exercises that you should be doing together in certain workouts, things of that nature. And it all depends upon sort of what your goals are in that whole deal. But I think that not being closed-minded in regard to your own training can be really beneficial. I think that, sort of being willing to change your philosophy in regard to your own um, workouts can be really pivotal in helping you progress yourself. Um, and I think that when you find, there's many different ways to reach the top of the mountain, right? There's plenty of different trails to get there. So I think that, so many people get into the routine of doing the same thing every single day, um, or the same thing week over week, not even just in exercise, but just in life. And they don't deviate from that much. And I think that, um, that does develop a great level of consistency. But I also feel as though that, once you sort of get so used to, a particular sort of way of life, or a particular style of workout, you sort of adapt to sort of that lifestyle sort of no longer challenges you. Um, so I think the big thing is constantly challenging yourself in new ways, and that can be as simplistic as, I took on a totally different um, avenue more recently in regard to podcasts, reading about um, how gut microbiome impacts your overall health, your overall performance.
Yeah.
It impacts your recovery. What supplements are valuable for you to be taking in order to adequately recover, and how that plays a role in your performance. Changing up your training cycles and not constantly just going to the gym and lifting as much weight as you possibly can on every given day. Sort of having sort of some level of periodization to your training. Not constantly trying to go in there every day and beat yourself dead into a puddle. Um, and then all of a sudden you realize that you're starting to make more progress. So I think that, you know to get back to sort of the question that you're asking is, what are habits that you instill on a day to day that you feel allow for you to be successful? And I think that, my definitive answer would be, um, I think that trying to get into a routine of um, eating food that you feel um, is good quality from a good source, and um, that will help give you energy toward your mentally and physically toward um, the demands, or to work toward the demands that you have on a day-to-day basis. I think that's number one. I think number two is, figuring out, what vitamins would be really beneficial for you to have on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you're not deficient in any given area. And you can even go get blood tests done to sort of evaluate that. But I think that, for people who are really active, I think that there's, a number of areas that, that you can really benefit from taking in daily. I think vitamin D, because a lot of us spend a lot of time inside instead of outside. Maybe not so much right now with quarantine, but on the day to day when you're working at a desk all day, or you're working inside a gym all day and you don't get a whole lot of sunlight, I think vitamin D is one. I think that with the amount of training per week, maybe 5 to 6 days, I think that magnesium is another one, particularly from a recovery standpoint and from a muscle restoration standpoint, a muscle growth standpoint. I think that's sort of a big one. Um, I think that I think there's sort of it's all sort of opinion. It depends upon the individual. But I think there's other things that you can sort of just read up on in regard to how you can help optimize your performance and recovery through supplementation and through diet. Um, One other thing that I would like to add in is that um, anytime that I'm, you know, uh, driving to and from work, I'm constantly trying to throw on some form of stimulating podcast with that will allow for me to, to learn information on various topics that I'm interested in the fitness industry. Um, because at the minimum, right, we all have busy days, we all have a lot of time commitments, we all have significant others that we want to spend time with, and we all have families and our own training and things like that. So you're not always going to have the opportunity and the discipline to be able to open up a book or to be able to, sit down and read or whatnot to accumulate information. So I think that sort of time where you're in the car, that you have no other alternative, and you're sort of commuting to and from work, I think it's a really valuable time to use to help improve your knowledge basis, to help grow as an individual. And it's very comparable to sitting down and having read a book and just sort of, continuing to learn daily and help progress yourself. And then I think that the last part that I would include is, regardless of what field you are in, um, whether it be fitness, whether it be landscape, whether it be construction, whether it be healthcare, I don't think it necessarily matters. I think that one thing that would be beneficial to include daily is including some time that is dedicated towards um, understanding what life you want for yourself, um, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the line, um, and understanding what steps you can take today to be able to get yourself to the place that you want to be years from now. And that's sort of what I'll leave you with, is that I think that, you know, we constantly operate on autopilot because our lifestyles are so busy, um, that, really delving into, you know, where you see yourself and believing in yourself, um, for your future, and sort of, the best thing you can do is investing in yourself for your future to get yourself to the place that you want to be in life.
I think that's the perfect way to end it, man. I mean, I couldn't agree more with all the stuff. Simply said that people got to continuously to be uncomfortable, push themselves to be uncomfortable, because that's where that growth is coming from. And that's, getting out of that normal monotonous status that you're saying, of that routine on a day-to-day basis. And something I talked about is chasing discomfort, being uncomfortable, getting better. So, I couldn't agree more, man. I think that's the perfect way to end it. And if people can take that advice from you and simply just push themselves to educate themselves more, whether it's their own health, their own fitness, their own nutrition, whatever it may be, and then also just doing that same in whatever career they want, and not being scared to push themselves to go into that career, and not judge themselves and not worry about other people. If they can combine all that together, they'll be on the right track to being like just happy. So I appreciate you coming on, man, taking the time. And if anyone wants to reach you, is it better Facebook, Instagram? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah. So I actually, for multiple reasons, I actually stepped away from Instagram, because I viewed it as a complete time suck for my day. So I actually don't have an Instagram account presently, and that's actually helped me tremendously. But that may change in the near future. I'm not 100% sure on that, from a business standpoint. But yeah, the best way to reach me, if you have, if anyone's interested, would be just be direct message through Facebook. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any advice, to anyone who's potentially interested in getting into the fitness industry, as well as potentially anyone who is interested in any form of training or any form of programming or anything of that nature. I'm open to sort of any of the above, and I'll sort of leave you with that. But I really appreciate sort of you having me on here, Jeff, and I'm glad that I was able to sort of share some information about sort of my path to where I am now, training at Equinox, and having a full-time business in the fitness industry, that despite not having gone to school in the field, and sort of what sort of things I emphasize, through these past 4 years to get me to that point.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you coming on, and I hope someone reaches out to you, ask questions, and and if you can help in any way, I think that'd be awesome. So, but everybody, till next time, chase discomfort, be kind. I'll see you guys later.